Welcome everyone to CDO Magazine series of one-on-one interviews with CDOs, data leaders, and key influencers. I'm your host, Robert Lutton, Vice President of Sandhill Consultants, and I'm coming to you today from Toronto, Canada. Working with the CDO Magazine today, I have the pleasure of introducing Elif Tutuk. Elif is the VP of Product at AtScale, whose company's solution offer a consolidated view of data access across the organization. Welcome, Elif.
Welcome, Robert. It's great to be here.
It is a pleasure. Now, before we begin, can we kind of have a little bit of a background about your role at AtScale and what does AtScale offer for its clients?
Yeah, sure. I will be happy to do that. So my role, as you mentioned, to run the product organization. So we are at the age of really changing the paradigm of how cloud analytics is done. So when it comes to what AtScale provides, AtScale is a universal semantic layer platform. So to explain what is a semantic layer and its value for cloud analytics, I'm going to use an analogy with gravity.
Sure.
So far, within the data and analytics space, we have seen two major gravity shifts. The first one was the data gravity, right? All of the on-prem data moving to cloud to be centralized on the cloud data warehouses.
Yep.
And the second gravity shift that we have seen is the insight gravity, and that is all about, droning to multiple BI and AI tools. Like, as you know, Robert, there is no organization that uses one BI tool, right?
No, there is a plethora of BI tools out there.
Yeah. So in fact, I think on average, like organizations use 4 or more BI and AI tools. So what we are seeing now is the third gravity shift, and I'm calling that third gravity shift is the knowledge gravity. Then that knowledge gravity sits in between the data gravity and insight gravity, and this is where you actually transform your data and make it business ready. So that is where the semantic layer sits. And that is where the organizations define all of their business logic and transformations and metric definitions, so that all of the BI and AI consumption can happen from the same place, providing single version of truth.
Single version of truth is definitely what a lot of organizations are after. And just for our listeners, today we'll be exploring a couple of different topics around AtScale. The first was analytic mesh, which Elif had talked about, and its impact on the analytics architecture. Then we'll head into the Gen AI and its potential to significantly transform the landscape of business intelligence. And then finally, we'll end up with the role of data analytics and their personas and how they're evolving rapidly. So with that, Elif, we've got quite an agenda for us. If we can dive right in, from your point of view, given the distributed nature you just talked about of analytics architecture, and in the context of data mesh, from your point of view, how do the different analytics mesh frameworks facilitate seamless scalability and integration across a decentralized data team?
Yeah, great question. And I love how you framed it, Robert, in terms of the distributed nature of analytics architecture. And I think in addition to kind of mentioning scalability and integration, it is also important to mention the agility and governance.
Yes.
And when it comes to governance, like we have seen two different approaches. And when I talk to our customers and prospects, that is, a very big topic that I talk to. So the first approach has been having a centralized data and analytics team so that, they typically focus on implementing governance measures and definitions. And we have seen the disadvantage of that approach because they create a bottleneck, and with the speed of the business, they are not able to produce the analytics product with the speed of the business.
Right.
And then we have seen the second approach that involves decentralized analytics teams, as you said, and that they also have their advantage, but their disadvantage is, then the decentralized teams, they create unnecessary copies of data extracts. You don't want to have a data extract, especially if you have the data gravity in cloud. And also like inconsistent definitions of metrics. So like from my perspective, to really provide this agility and governance and integration, we need to kind of come up with a new approach to governance. And what I call that as the hub and spoke approach.
Right.
And hub and spoke approach kind of takes the advantage of both a central governance, but ultimately it creates a federated governance, enabling the business units to be able to more easily work with data to create their analytics products.
Certainly an evolving viewpoint, and we appreciate your knowledge on that. If we go a little bit further and look at, strategies or technologies, what would you recommend an organization to look at adopting to ensure their data analytics components can effectively communicate and share insights while maintaining the governance, the data governance you just mentioned?
Yeah. So the strategies, and I'm super excited about this, is I'm calling that strategy an analytics mesh strategy. Maybe let me first explain what I mean by analytics mesh. So I think so far we have seen, most of the listeners know the concept of data mesh, right? Yep. It's all about enabling the business domains with the ownership of the data. So, but so far we have been talking about data products and data mesh. And for me, we have to start thinking about analytics products as well, because ultimately analytics products where the insights happen, and this is where you consume, the business users consume that. So that's why I'm talking about more analytics products for organizations as a strategy. And then analytics mesh is very similar to the data mesh framework, right? But the analytics mesh, it provides composable semantic objects or composable business definitions of data. So think that, a customer definition, right? There has to be one customer definition. There has to be one sales definition that a business unit can use. But in the meantime, the business needs agility. And for a time period, maybe the definition of a customer churn needs to change. And that's okay for a business unit to change that, as long as those objects become composable and reusable and versionable, where you can still track, what version of customer churn that object is being used. So analytics mesh is a framework of all those composable semantic objects that the business units can actually come, reuse, and then put them together. So, Robert, it's like having a Lego building blocks.
Right.
So since I was a kid, I've been a big Lego fan. It's not like they are colorful building blocks, but they really help me to become creative and innovative. And since I've been, in the data analytics space with my career, I've been always I'm passionate about enabling the business units, users to innovate with data. I've been dreaming about having this concept of composable semantic definitions that you can put together so that ultimately you can build new analytics products with governance in place. And the analytics mesh really enables that.
I think you're talking about a lot of key areas that clients are interested in. How do they get that analytics into the business hands while maintaining governance and easy to use? If I can ask, in your opinion, what best practices and tools, and again, feel free to leverage your own tool here, what tools can be employed to maintain these robust governance and compliance standards within the analytics mesh frameworks?
Yeah, that's great. So to answer the question, I want to kind of, again, go back to Lego. Lego comes from a Danish phrase of let go. I'm not pronouncing it right, probably, but in Danish, it means play well. So the whole idea about analytics mesh is to let the users to play well with data, but in governance. So, and when it comes to tools and best practices to achieve that, I think we should really be thinking about versioning and really approaching these composable semantic objects as code. So analytics mesh with a universal semantic layer should be able to apply those object-oriented framework to these objects, where each object, like a metric, sales or a churn or customer dimension, they become all modular, and you really apply the best practice of software development into those objects, where they become versionable. They are modular. They are reusable. They have the CI/CD integration and workflow management. So I think that those are the tools and the best practices that you need to think about to create that analytics mesh. And of course, you need to have a technology to enable that analytics mesh, and that is where the universal semantic layer like AtScale comes in place, providing that type of federated governance with a high-speed, cloud optimized analytics consumption.
So last question on the analytics mesh, and feel free to kind of point our listeners into an area where they can find more information not on this. But analytics mesh represents obviously a paradigm shift. You mentioned this, the gigantic shift or technology shift you mentioned in the analytics architecture. What challenges do you see that data and analytics technical professionals are going to encounter as a transition to a federated analytics product-focused architecture like analytics mesh?
Great question. So I think like a couple of challenges that I'm seeing, and then they are able to resolve that, with the technology, is number one, the users, they would like to use the tool of their choice. Right. So like if you're a finance user, you want to analyze your data in Excel to get the job done. But if you're a marketing user, you may want to use Tableau or Click. So that is the number one challenge, like that universal semantic layer should provide that seamless integration to all of the BI and AI tools. And that so that analytics mesh can be opened up for all of the consumption. So that is on the consumption side. But in the meantime, you have personas, data personas, who are creating that knowledge gravity, the content of those composable semantic objects. And that is where I see the challenge, from the persona perspective. They want to use their way of developing, and that could be a code-based, or it can be a graphical user interface non-code. So the technology really should welcome all of these types of preferences for the data personas, how they want to create the analytics product. So I would say that those are the two challenges, and really the technology should welcome them and then provide the user experience where they just let them to use the way of doing it or using the tool of choice to get the job done.
And from your point of view, from AtScale's point of view, AtScale has a solution that can address those challenges. Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. So with AtScale, we welcome BI personas because we have a graphical user interface. Now we are working on AtScale markup language that we are going to release end of this year, so that all the analytics personas can start creating analytics meshes and composable semantic objects. And day one, we have built AtScale with the intent of that seamless BI integration. In fact, we are the only one in the market who can provide the same OLAP-like capabilities with SSAS, like Microsoft SSAS solution, so that we are now, providing that OLAP-like analysis on top of cloud data. By leaving the data at the cloud, we are not extracting data, but then we still provide the same, OLAP multi-dimension analysis at scale.
On behalf of the CDO Magazine, we'd really appreciate you taking your time to provide your insights on these topics. We certainly hope we're going to get the chance to have you come back and share your expertise and knowledge with our community again. Thanks very much indeed.
Yeah, thank you very much, Robert.
For our listeners, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. Thank you.